Turning to our breaking news story now, and a 45-year-old police officer has been shot and killed in a double shooting in Tamworth. Two people were shot outside a block of flats at Coaldale in Tamworth at about 8 o'clock this morning. ABC reporter Catherine Clifford has been following the story from Tamworth. She joins us on the phone now. Catherine, what can you tell us about what happened?
Yes, it is indeed a sad time for Tamworth as their Highway Patrol officer David Rickson was shot by Michael Allen Jacobs. Michael Allen Jacobs has been determined guilty for shooting David Rickson. The case was held in the Supreme Court of New South Wales and was judged by Judge Richard Button. And Jacobs has been sentenced to the entirety of his natural life in jail. On the 2nd of March, Michael Allen Jacob had gotten into an argument with his partner Sharon Strudwick, who he shares a home with, and her son James Strudwick. The argument resulted in him driving away from the premises, taking with him his pet cat and .38 caliber revolver, which was loaded with multiple cartridges. The couple also struggled with a long-standing addiction to illegal drugs, which he had been injected with the previous evening. Shortly after Miss Strudwick and Jacob spoke on a call to resolve their argument, it seemed that Jacob was intending to return home. But before he did, he stopped at a service station on the Gunnedah Road in West Tamworth and purchased some petrol and cigarettes. While Jacob was on his way home, Rickson was also driving along the Gunnedah Road in his highway patrol vehicle when he spotted the offender's motor vehicle. In the previous months, Jacobs had been stopped a number of times for driving offences and was disqualified. It had gotten to the point where he had been warned by another police officer that if he offended again, it was quite possible that he would be refused bail by the police. As a result of Rickson's suspicion towards the driver's lawlessness, he did a U-turn and his vehicle proceeded to follow Jacobs' vehicle. Jacobs quickly became aware that he was being followed by a police vehicle, so he rapidly left the main road and drove through some back streets as Rickson followed. The offender ended up parking his car in a grassed area some distance from the curb of Lorraine Street, West Tamworth. That area was a part of a block of units in which he had resided some time before. The deceased parked his patrol car on the street, alighted, and walked towards the vehicle of the offender. The in-car video of the highway patrol car was activated, but it did not record what happened next. However, Rickson was wearing a microphone and recorded the events. The time was a little before 8 a.m. when Rickson greeted Jacobs on friendly terms, and he replied mirroring his behavior. At that stage, Jacobs had gotten out of his vehicle as well and was standing on the grassed area. When the two were close enough to talk, almost immediately, Jacobs fired a shot from a revolver at David Rickson. The projectile passed through the left wrist of Rickson and then entered his chest. As the professor who conducted the post-mortem explained, the resulting injuries to his heart and lungs were rapid and inevitably fatal. A number of projectiles hit the offender. Immediately after the exchange of fire, the offender screamed, "Ah, die, I'm sorry, sir, sorry." Of course, at that time, each of them was unaware that their conversation was being intercepted. Although the offender was suffering from the remnants of delirium at that time, many of the things that he said were coherent and truthful admissions of guilt. Michael Allen Jacob tried accusing his drug supplier Terrence James Price of the crime. A forensic psychiatrist provided a report of Jacob's aspects of life and character, which helped the judge understand Michael Allen Jacobs, but in that report, Jacob's statements weren't truthful. The report of the forensic psychiatrist records that, in the past, he has suffered from substance-induced psychotic disorder, and currently suffers from substance use disorder. But to be clear, he does not suffer from any delusional beliefs or brain injury or underlying psychotic illness. One of the first pieces of evidence the jury saw was an in-car video from the officer's vehicle that morning as he followed Jacobs, a known disqualified driver, from a Caltex service station. This piece of evidence helped the judge make their decision as it was quite clear to the court that in the footage was Jacobs' car. Another piece of evidence that was presented during the trial was unfired cartridges located at the home of the accused. Unfired cartridges found whilst accused in hospital, unfired cartridges of the same caliber as ammunition found at the scene. Majority of unfired cartridges of same make and ammunition found at the scene. Whether evidence relevant, whether probative value of evidence outweighed by danger of unfair prejudice, evidence to be admitted. The judge said every murder, founded as it is upon the taking of life of a fellow human being in the worst circumstances known to law, is extremely grave, and it could be said that the use of a firearm, and especially a handgun, is itself an aspect that makes this murder more serious than an offence that is committed with a less egregiously dangerous, terrifying, and antisocial weapon. Quite apart from that, the murder of a police officer who was acting in the execution of his or her duty carries with it an entirely separate and additional attribute.